My mom kicked me out so my golden half-sister could move in. But 3 months later, I want you to think about something before I start talking. Think about the one person in your life who was supposed to always be on your side. The one person who was supposed to choose you no matter what. For most people, that person is their mom. Now imagine waking up one day and realizing that person chose someone else instead. Not a stranger, not even an enemy, but a half-sister you barely knew, who showed up out of nowhere, smiled at your mom like she had known her for 20 years, and within 6 months had your bedroom, your spot at the dinner table, and your entire life handed to her on a silver platter while you were standing on a cold sidewalk with 2 bags and absolutely nowhere to go. That is not a hypothetical. That is exactly what happened to me. And I am going to tell you every single detail of this story because I think you deserve to hear the truth. Not a cleaned-up version of it. Not the version where I say everything worked out fine and we all forgave each other and learned a lesson. The real version. Because the real version is the only one that actually makes sense of everything that came after. My name is not important right now. What is important is that I was 22 years old when all of this happened. I had been living with my mom since I graduated high school because college was not an option for me financially, and I was trying to figure out my life while also working 2 part-time jobs and paying a small amount of rent to my mom every month. Not a lot, but something. I was contributing. I was trying. I was doing everything I thought a responsible adult child was supposed to do while still living at home. My mom and my dad split up when I was 7 years old. It was not a clean break. There were arguments, there were court dates, there was a whole painful chapter of my childhood that I spent mostly confused and scared and just trying to stay out of the way. My dad eventually moved to another state. He remarried when I was around 12, and I met his new wife a few times over the years, but never really got close to her or that side of his life. It always felt like 2 separate worlds that were not supposed to touch. My life with my mom was one world. My dad and his new family was another world entirely. So when I was maybe 16, I found out that my dad had a daughter with his new wife. A girl who was about 4 years younger than me. Her name was Jasmine. I met her exactly twice before any of this happened. Once at a family gathering when I was 17 and she was 13, and once at a birthday dinner for my dad when I was 19. Both times were awkward. We were polite to each other the way strangers are polite when they have been told they are supposed to like each other. We did not fight. We did not bond. We were just 2 people who shared a biological connection but nothing else. I did not think about Jasmine very often after that. My life was busy in the way that young adult lives are busy when you do not have money and you're trying to figure everything out at once. I was working. I was trying to save money. I was dealing with the everyday stress of living in my mom's house and navigating her moods and her expectations and all the unspoken rules that come with being an adult child living with a parent who simultaneously wants you to be independent but also wants things done her way. My mom is a complicated person. I say that with love because I do still love her, but I also say it with honesty because pretending she is simple would be a lie. She grew up very hard. She worked very hard. She built a life mostly on her own after my dad left, and she is proud of that in a way that sometimes tips over into stubbornness. She has a thing about appearances, about how things look to other people, about being seen as a good person, a generous person, a person who does the right thing. I understood this about her. I grew up watching it, and I thought I understood it well enough to predict how it would affect our relationship. I was wrong. It started about a year before she asked me to leave. My dad called me one evening, which was unusual because my dad and I did not talk that often. We had a relationship, but it was more obligatory than warm. He called to tell me that he and his wife were going through a really rough time. He did not go into details. He said things were difficult and that Jasmine was struggling. He asked if I had kept in touch with her. I told him honestly that I had not. He sounded disappointed but did not push it. He asked me to maybe reach out to her sometime. I said I would think about it, and then I mostly forgot about the conversation. About 2 months later, Jasmine messaged me on social media. I was surprised. Her message was short, just something like, "Hey, I know we do not really know each other, but I heard you are living with your mom, and I am kind of going through some stuff right now, and I wondered if we could talk sometime." I thought that was a little odd, but I was not suspicious of it. I figured maybe she was just lonely or going through something and was reaching out to the only sibling she had. I messaged back. We talked a few times over the next couple of weeks. She seemed sweet. A little lost, maybe. She talked about her parents fighting a lot, about feeling stuck, about not knowing what she wanted to do with her life. I told my mom about these conversations. I mentioned that Jasmine had reached out and that we had been talking. My mom's reaction surprised me. She got genuinely curious, even excited. She asked me questions about Jasmine. What was she like? Was she doing okay? What was going on with her parents? I answered what I could. My mom got very quiet after that, and then said something that I replayed in my head many times over the next few months. She said that she had always felt bad that Jasmine existed because of circumstances that hurt our family, but that Jasmine herself was just an innocent kid who did not ask to be born into all that drama. I thought that was a mature and generous thing to say. I remember feeling proud of my mom for that. What I did not realize was that something had shifted in my mom's head during that conversation. Something that I would not fully understand until much later. A few weeks after that, my mom asked if it would be okay if she reached out to Jasmine directly. I thought that was a little strange, but I said sure. I did not see the harm. My mom was a friendly person. Jasmine was going through a tough time. Maybe it would be nice for her to have a caring adult in her corner. I did not think much beyond that. They started talking regularly. My mom would mention Jasmine in conversation more and more. She would say things like, "Oh, I talked to Jasmine today. She is such a sweet girl." Or Jasmine told me something so funny. She really has a great sense of humor. At first I smiled along with it. I was glad they were connecting. But after a while I started to notice that these conversations about Jasmine were happening every single day, and the way my mom talked about her was different from the way she talked about me. There was a warmth in her voice when she talked about Jasmine that felt almost tender, almost reverent, like she was describing someone precious. I started to feel a small, uncomfortable feeling somewhere in my chest. I pushed it down because I did not want to be petty about it. I told myself I was overthinking it, that my mom was just being kind to a girl who needed some kindness, that there was no reason to feel threatened by this. Then my mom told me that Jasmine was going to come visit for a weekend. I said okay. I helped clean the guest room. I made sure there were clean towels. I was going to be welcoming and normal and not make it weird. Jasmine arrived on a Friday evening. She had a huge bag and a shy smile, and she walked into our house and immediately started complimenting everything. She told my mom the house was beautiful. She said she loved the photos on the wall. She noticed a small painting my mom had made years ago and asked about it and listened to the story with what looked like genuine fascination. My mom was glowing, genuinely glowing in a way I had not seen from her in a long time. That weekend, watching the two of them together, I felt something I am not proud of. I felt invisible. I would walk into a room, and the conversation would not pause for me to join it. I would try to contribute, and the energy would shift back to whatever my mom and Jasmine were talking about. It was not aggressive or obvious. It was subtle. The kind of thing you cannot call out without sounding crazy or jealous or small. Sunday came and Jasmine had to go home. She hugged my mom for a long time at the door. My mom looked like she might cry. After Jasmine left, my mom stood at the door for a moment and then turned to me and said she was such a good kid. I really connected with her. I said, "Yeah, she seems nice." My mom looked at me like she wanted to say something more but did not. The visits continued. Every few weeks Jasmine would come for a weekend. Then the weekends got longer. A weekend became 4 days. 4 days became a week. My mom started buying things for the house that I noticed were more Jasmine's style than mine. A different kind of soap in the bathroom. A snack in the kitchen that Jasmine had mentioned she liked. Little things. Small things. But they added up. I started noticing that my mom and I were arguing more. Not big arguments. Small ones. Disagreements about things we never used to disagree about. She would criticize how I loaded the dishwasher. She would make comments about my work schedule being inconsistent. She mentioned once that I needed to think more about my future. I pushed back on that one and said I was trying, and she said trying is not the same as doing. I brought up one evening, carefully, the fact that I felt like things had shifted between us. That I felt like maybe she was comparing me to Jasmine in some way, even if she did not realize it. My mom looked at me like I had said something offensive. She said that was not fair and that she was just happy to have a relationship with Jasmine and that I should be glad for that too. I said I was glad. I just wanted to make sure I still had my own place in our relationship. My mom got quiet and said, "Of course you do," and then the conversation ended. But things did not feel like they were back to normal. They felt tighter. 3 months after Jasmine's first visit, my mom sat me down on a Sunday afternoon. I could tell by the way she set the scene, the closed door, the deliberate posture, the serious expression, that this was going to be a significant conversation. She said she had been thinking a lot about Jasmine's situation. She said Jasmine's parents were separating for real now, and Jasmine needed a stable place to be. She said she wanted to offer Jasmine a place to stay indefinitely. I nodded slowly because I was still processing this. And then she said that the only way that made sense was if she converted the second bedroom into Jasmine's room. I said that was my room. She said she knew that, and that she had been thinking about it, and that she thought it was time for me to think about getting my own place. I remember the way the air felt in the room after she said that, like something had been vacuumed out of it. I asked her if she was asking me to move out. She said she was asking me to think seriously about transitioning to my own space. She said it like it was a favor to me, like she was helping me grow up. I asked her how long I had. She said ideally she would like things to be sorted out within about 6 weeks. 6 weeks to find an apartment, save a deposit, arrange everything, append my entire life. 6 weeks, so that a girl she had known for less than a year could have my bedroom. I did not yell. I did not cry in front of her. I nodded, and I said okay, and I went to my room and I sat on my bed and I stared at the wall for a very long time. The next few weeks were some of the hardest of my life. I was working 2 jobs and trying to find an affordable apartment in a city where affordable was basically a myth. I reached out to friends. I asked everyone I knew if anyone had a room or a couch I could use temporarily. I was trying to be an adult about it, the way my mom had framed it, as if moving out was simply the natural next step and not something that had been dropped on me without warning or time to prepare. I found a place eventually, a small room in a shared house with 2 other people. It was not ideal. It was far from my jobs. The house was old and drafty, and the kitchen smelled like something no one wanted to identify. But it was mine. I packed my things and I moved out 4.5 weeks after that conversation. Not because I was fully ready, but because I could not stay in that house and watch Jasmine settle into my life. The morning I left, my mom hugged me. She said she was proud of me for handling this maturely. I did not say what I was thinking. I picked up my bags and I walked out the door and I sat in my car in the driveway for about 5 minutes before I could make myself drive away. Jasmine moved in 3 days after I left. I knew this because my mom texted me a photo of the freshly decorated room, which was clearly styled to Jasmine's taste, with a message that said it is really coming together. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I put my phone down and went to work. The following 3 months were a blur of stress and grinding routine. I was working constantly. I was trying to save money while barely keeping up with rent and food. I was exhausted in a way that went deeper than physical tiredness. I missed having a stable home. I missed having a kitchen I did not share with strangers. I missed the small comforts of the place I had grown up in. But more than any of that, I missed my mom. Or maybe more accurately, I missed the idea of my mom that I had grown up with, the version of her that I had believed in, the version where I was the person who mattered most to her. I called her sometimes. The conversations were polite and surface level. She told me about her days. She mentioned Jasmine often. Jasmine got a part-time job. Jasmine was taking a class. Jasmine made dinner the other night, and it turned out really well. I listened and said the right things, and hung up the phone feeling hollowed out. About 2 months into my life in the shared house, something started happening with Jasmine that my mom would only tell me about in fragments. She mentioned once that Jasmine had been having a hard week. Then a few weeks later she mentioned that Jasmine and her had disagreed about something, but she did not say what. Then there was a week where my mom did not bring up Jasmine at all, which was so unusual that I noticed the absence. I did not push for information. I figured if my mom wanted to tell me something, she would. She told me at the beginning of the 3rd month. She called me on a Tuesday evening, which was unusual. She said she needed to talk to me. Her voice was different from how it normally sounded. Quieter. A little unsteady. She told me that Jasmine had been in contact with her biological dad, my dad, the whole time she had been living with us. She told me that apparently Jasmine had been sharing details about our household with him. Details that my mom considered private. There had been a confrontation between my mom and my dad over something Jasmine had relayed to him, something about money, about a financial decision my mom had made, and it had escalated into a genuinely ugly situation. My mom found out that Jasmine had been relaying information about her, details, complaints, observations, back to a man that my mom considered one of the most painful chapters of her past. She said she felt betrayed. I let that word sit in the air for a moment. I said I was sorry she was going through that. She said she had asked Jasmine about it, and Jasmine had not denied it. Jasmine had said she was just talking to her dad, that she had not meant any harm, that she did not think of it as doing anything wrong. And my mom said she believed that Jasmine had not intended to cause harm, but the impact was real and the trust was broken, and she did not know how to come back from it. She said she was probably going to have to ask Jasmine to make other arrangements. And then she paused and said, I think I made a mistake. I held the phone and I did not say anything for a long moment. And then I said, which mistake? And she said all of it. I think I got swept up in this idea of Jasmine, this idea of doing something good and generous and healing this old wound in our family, and I let that idea take over more than it should have. I got so caught up in the feeling of it that I stopped thinking clearly about what I was doing to our actual relationship, to you, to the foundation that was already here. I listened. She said she knew that what she had asked me to do had not been fair. She said she had told herself a story about it at the time, that it was for my good, that it would push me toward independence, that I was ready. But she said she had known, somewhere, that the timing was not really about me being ready. It was about her wanting to make room for something new, and it was easier to frame it as helping me than to admit that she was choosing one daughter over another. I did not interrupt her. She said she was sorry, and I sat there in my cold, drafty room in a house that smelled like mystery, and I thought about all the ways that sorry was both everything and not quite enough. But here is the thing about being someone's child. Even when they hurt you in a way you did not see coming and did not deserve, even when they dismantle something that took years to build and hand the pieces to someone else, even when the apology comes 3 months too late and only after the experiment failed, you still carry that love for them inside you. It does not disappear. It changes shape. It gets more complicated. But it does not leave. I told my mom that I hurt her. I told her that I was not okay with what happened and that I needed her to understand that clearly, not as a way of punishing her, but because it was the truth. I told her that I had felt replaced. I had felt like she had looked at Jasmine and seen some ideal version of a daughter that I had never lived up to, and had decided that was worth more than what we had actually built together. She cried. I did not rush to comfort her. I let her sit with it the same way I had been sitting with it for 3 months. And then I said that I was not done with her, that I still wanted our relationship, but that we were going to have to rebuild it on different terms that included honesty, and honesty included her being honest with herself about why she makes the choices she makes. She said she could do that. Jasmine moved out about 2 weeks after that conversation. My mom told me she had helped her find a room in a shared apartment closer to where Jasmine's dad was. My mom said they were still in contact, that she did not want to just cut Jasmine off, that Jasmine was not a bad person, and what happened had not been entirely malicious. I respected that. It was a more nuanced way of handling it than I might have managed at her age. I did not move back into my mom's house. I want to be clear about that because I think people expect that part of the story to end with me going home and everything going back to the way it was. It did not. I stayed in my shared house for another 4 months while I got my finances in a better place, and then I found a small studio apartment that I could actually afford, and I moved into it, and it was mine. A place that no one could take from me because no one else had any claim over it. My mom and I see each other regularly now. We have dinner together once a week most weeks. It is not the same as before, but in some ways it is better because it is more honest. We talk about things we did not used to talk about. She has admitted more to me about her own insecurities and her own patterns than she ever did when I was just her kid living under her roof. I have told her more about how I actually felt growing up, the things I needed that she did not always give me, the ways I sometimes felt invisible even before Jasmine was ever in the picture. It is a work in progress, but it is real. And Jasmine, I actually have something to say about Jasmine too, because I think it would be too easy to just make her the villain in this story. She was not. She was a 20-year-old girl whose parents were falling apart, who had no real foundation, who reached out in the only direction that seemed open to her and found someone who welcomed her in. She did not come into my mom's house with a plan to take my place. She just came in, and my mom let her fill a space, and I got pushed out in the process. Jasmine did not do that to me. My mom did, and I think Jasmine probably felt some version of guilt about it even if she never said so to me directly. We do not have a close relationship, Jasmine and I, but we have spoken a couple of times since everything settled, and neither of those conversations was hostile. She apologized for any role she played in how things went. I told her I did not blame her for my mom's choices. That is the truth. What I want to say to anyone watching this who is in a situation where a parent has chosen someone or something over you is this. You are allowed to feel the full weight of that. You are allowed to grieve it. You are allowed to be angry about it without being told that you are overreacting or being selfish. Because being chosen by your parent is not a small thing. It is a fundamental thing. And when that does not happen, or when it is taken away, it leaves a mark. But that mark does not have to be the whole story. The version of yourself that survived being displaced, that found a room in a stranger's house and went to work every day and kept going, that version of you is real and capable and worth something completely independent of whether your parents saw it clearly. Your worth is not a reflection of your parents' ability to perceive it. My mom failed to see that clearly for a while. She got distracted by something shiny and new, and she did not protect what she had. That was her failure, not mine. And 3 months later, when the whole thing collapsed the way fragile things built on idealism tend to do, what was left was the truth. The truth about what she had done. The truth about what we had lost. And the beginning, slow and uncertain and real, of something that might actually last this time because it was built on honesty instead of the story she wanted to tell about herself. That is what 3 months looks like when you are on the other side of being someone's second choice. It looks like clarity. It looks like a small cold room that is yours. And it looks like a phone call on a Tuesday night when someone finally says the words you needed to hear. And you decide what to do with those words. You decide /.